The cold wind of the alien planet swept across the barren landscape. Dust swirled in the air, dancing with the dim light of distant twin moons. The settlement ahead was almost invisible, a patchwork of broken buildings and charred walls. Smoke rose from several chimneys, thick and gray, and the faint sound of children crying drifted through the night. The place looked abandoned, yet a quiet life lingered in the shadows. A lone figure walked carefully along the cracked pathway, his boots crunching against the stone-like soil. He was human, a traveler who had crossed countless galaxies, yet something about this place made him pause. The settlement felt lonely, empty, and yet he sensed something alive, something hidden. He stopped near a small cluster of ruins and saw them. A group of children, no older than 10 or 12. They huddled together, shivering, their skin faintly glowing under the cold moon's light. Their eyes were wide with fear and curiosity. As soon as they noticed the stranger, they backed away, pressing closer to one another. One small boy whispered something to his sister, but the human could not understand their language. Still, he felt their message clearly. "We are alone. We need help." Then, from the shadow of a broken wall, a figure emerged. She was tall, graceful, and carried an air of both strength and sorrow. Her skin shimmered like polished silver, and her eyes were deep pools of violet reflecting a sadness that reached to the human's chest. She moved slowly as if weighed down by invisible chains, yet there was a quiet dignity in every step. When she spoke, her voice trembled, but it carried an undeniable weight. "Adopt my homeless children, and end my loneliness, human." The human froze. He had heard pleas before, but nothing like this. There was no trickery in her voice, no hidden threat, just raw desperation. The children clutched her robes, their small hands trembling. Their mother's sorrow mirrored the quiet despair of the planet itself. He wanted to ask questions, to understand. But her eyes stopped him. The violet orbs were unflinching, staring into his very soul. He felt a pang of something he had not felt in years. Compassion, an urge to help, a longing to make a difference. The widow stepped closer. "Our world. It was destroyed. A rogue faction attacked. My husband, he is dead. My children. They are all I have left. I survived, but I cannot give them everything. I need you, please." Her words were simple, but the meaning was heavy. The human felt a chill run down his spine. He had crossed stars, seen countless civilizations, faced wars and monsters, yet nothing prepared him for this. He knelt slightly to meet the children's gaze. They stared at him with innocent eyes, tiny hands reaching toward him in hope. Then he heard it, a rustle behind the ruins. A shadow moved too fast to be human. Something watched from the darkness, waiting, silent, unseen. The widow noticed it too, her hand tightening around the children. Her face stiffened with fear, but she did not speak. The human's instincts kicked in. He quickly scanned the area, noting the strange movements in the ruins. Whatever was out there was not friendly, yet the children were here alone and he could not leave. Not this time. He nodded slowly. "I'll help," he said. A faint smile appeared on the widow's lips, fleeting and fragile. The children let out small sighs, relief washing over them. But the shadow in the distance did not move. It waited, watching. The human gathered supplies from his pack, basic rations, water, and medical kits. He handed them to the children, who accepted them silently, their eyes never leaving his. The widow guided them through the ruins, her movements cautious but quick. Every step seemed measured, as if the ground itself could betray them. As they reached the outskirts of the settlement, the widow began to tell her story. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "The rogue faction, they came without warning. They burned our homes, destroyed our crops, and killed anyone who resisted. My husband tried to fight, but he was killed in front of us. I fled with the children. I thought, maybe somewhere in the stars someone would help us. And now," her words faltered as tears streaked down her cheeks. She wiped them hastily, trying to maintain her dignity. The children clung to her skirts, trembling. The human could see the weight of years of loss in her eyes, and he felt his chest tighten. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind them. Stones fell from a crumbling wall, dust rising into the air. The human instinctively turned but saw nothing. The widow's hand gripped his arm. "We're not alone," she whispered. A figure stepped from the shadows, a tall, lean alien with dark armor and a helmet that hid its face. Its movements were swift, calculated. The human realized immediately. This was the shadow he had sensed. The bounty hunter. The rogue who had been following the widow and her children. The human stepped protectively in front of the children. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice steady though his heart pounded. The bounty hunter tilted its head, scanning him. It did not speak, but the intent was clear. They had come for the children. The widow stepped forward, placing herself beside the human. "You cannot take them," she said firmly, her voice stronger than before. "They are my children. I am their mother. I will not let you harm them." The bounty hunter made no move, yet the tension in the air was unbearable. Time seemed to stretch. The human's mind raced. How could he protect these children? He was only one man, and yet he could not turn back. Not now. The children's eyes were wide, watching silently. Their trust in him was complete, fragile as glass. He felt the weight of their hope, the responsibility they placed upon him without words. Suddenly, the bounty hunter lunged, fast as a streak of dark lightning. The human grabbed a nearby metal pipe, swinging it instinctively. The figure dodged easily, almost gracefully, and landed silently on the ground, circling them. The widow's children screamed, clutching each other. The human realized that brute force alone would not work. He needed a plan. Thinking quickly, he whispered to the widow, "We need to get to my ship. It's not far. Can you guide me?" She nodded, determination replacing fear. "Follow me, but move quickly." They ran through the narrow alleys of the ruins, dust and debris swirling around them. The bounty hunter followed, silent but relentless. Every corner they turned, every shadow they passed held danger. The human's mind raced, calculating, improvising, always keeping the children safe. At last, the faint glow of his spacecraft appeared on a distant ridge. Relief surged, but it was short-lived. The bounty hunter was closer now, moving faster than ever. The human stopped briefly, holding out his hands. "Children, stay close. Don't look back." The widow nodded, gripping her children tightly. With a sudden burst of speed, they made the final sprint to the ship. The human activated the doors just as the bounty hunter reached the ridge. The doors sealed with a hiss. The human leaned against them, breathing heavily while the widow held her children close. For a moment, silence. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air. They were safe. For now. The widow looked at the human, her eyes glistening. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given us hope, where there was none." The human nodded, but his mind remained alert. This was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, the bounty hunter waited, plotting.
And somewhere in the stars, other dangers lurked.
Waiting for a family like theirs. Yet as he looked at the widow and the children, he felt a strange warmth in his chest. Hope, compassion, something worth fighting for. And in that moment, he knew. He could not turn back. Not now. Not ever. Cliffhanger ending of Part 1. The camera pans out to show the barren planet below. Shadows move among the ruins, other hunters perhaps, or something worse. The human, the widow, and the children are safe for the moment, but the stars are full of threats. Their journey is just beginning. The human guided the widow and her children aboard his spacecraft, a sleek vessel that hummed softly in the cold darkness of space. The interior was simple, functional, but it had warmth, lights that glowed gently, beds that could fold out, and a small kitchen where the human often prepared meals during long travels. The children clutched the widow's hands tightly, their eyes wide as they explored the new environment. Every surface seemed strange, every shadow unknown. The human led them to a corner where the children could sit safely. "Here," he said softly, "you can rest. Everything is safe inside the ship." The widow watched him, her violet eyes filled with cautious trust. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice still trembling. "You are unlike any human I have ever met." The human smiled faintly, though he did not let his guard down. "I only do what I must. We are not safe yet." The children's curiosity overcame their fear. Small fingers reached out to touch the controls. Fascinated by the lights and buttons, a little girl with silver hair asked quietly, "Will we fly among the stars, Father?" The human froze slightly, realizing how natural it felt for them to call him Father. He knelt down, making eye contact. "Yes," he said gently, "we will. But you must stay close. The universe can be dangerous." The little boy nodded solemnly. "We will listen," he said. His voice was small but filled with a determination far beyond his years. The widow smiled faintly at this, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "They are strong," she said. "Stronger than I ever imagined." As the ship lifted off, gliding silently above the ruins of the widow's home planet, the human began to explain the plan. We will travel through the star lanes. They are the fastest paths between systems, but they are also watched. We must be careful. The widow nodded, her hands tightening around her children. Do they follow us? She asked, her voice low. The human's face hardened. Yes, the bounty hunter is not alone. Others may be tracking us. The children's eyes widened. Fear and curiosity mingled on their small faces. The human knelt again. Do not worry. I will protect you. I promise. Hours passed as the ship drifted through hyperspace. The children gradually relaxed, marveling at the view of swirling stars outside the viewport. The widow remained silent for most of the journey, lost in thought, her mind filled with memories of her destroyed home, her lost husband, and the fragility of her children. Finally, she spoke, her voice breaking the quiet. My husband. He fought bravely. I watched him fall. I could do nothing. I have carried that guilt for too long. The human listened quietly, letting her speak. He knew the importance of allowing her to release her pain. You did what you could, he said gently. Surviving. Saving your children. That is bravery too. Tears streamed down her face. But the children, they deserve more. I cannot give them a home. I cannot protect them from everything. The human placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You are giving them hope. That is enough for now. As they traveled deeper into space, strange things began to happen aboard the ship. Small supplies vanished from the shelves. Lights flickered unexpectedly. Alarms sounded briefly without cause. The human scanned the ship's sensors, frowning. They are here, he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The bounty hunter. And possibly others. The widow's eyes widened. They will not take them, she said fiercely, her tone protective. I will not let them. The human nodded, appreciating her courage. We will not let them, he promised. Over the next several hours, the human taught the children simple games to pass the time. They laughed softly, the sound filling the ship with warmth that had been absent for too long. The widow watched, a faint smile forming on her lips. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a moment of peace. But peace was fleeting. A sudden alarm blared, jolting everyone from their calm. The ship's sensors detected a vessel approaching rapidly. The human's heart raced. The bounty hunter had tracked them into hyperspace. Prepare yourselves, he said quietly but firmly. They are coming. The children clung to the widow. Father? The little girl asked, her voice small. Yes, he said, placing a hand over hers. I will keep you safe. The widow's grip on her children tightened. We are ready, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The ship rocked slightly as the unknown vessel drew closer. The human accessed the ship's defense systems, arming them with a calm efficiency born of years of experience. The children watched with wide eyes, understanding little but trusting completely. Then, without warning, the approaching vessel fired. Beams of energy streaked through space, narrowly missing the ship. The human maneuvered quickly, dodging, weaving, and countering. The children gasped at the bright flashes of light outside the window. The widow stepped forward. Do not let them harm the children, she whispered fiercely. I will not forgive myself if they do. The human's hands flew across the controls, activating countermeasures and emergency protocols. The battle was intense but brief. With a clever maneuver, he managed to shake the pursuers temporarily, sending them off course. Breathing heavily, he turned to the children and widow. We are safe. For now, he said. The widow sank into a seat, her hands trembling. Thank you, she whispered. You are truly a protector. Not just a human, but something more. The children, still holding tightly to each other, began to speak in small voices. We trust you, the little boy said. We will follow you. The human felt a warmth in his chest that he had not felt in years. These children, this widow, had touched something deep within him. They were not just survivors. They were family. As the ship resumed its journey through the stars, the human began to formulate a plan. They would need a safe haven, a place far from the reach of the bounty hunter and his allies. He considered several distant systems, ones rarely traveled, isolated planets where they could hide and rebuild. The widow watched him quietly, sensing the determination and intelligence behind his decisions. You are remarkable, she said softly. You care for stranger, for us. You have given us hope. The human nodded, not looking at her. Hope is all we have, he said simply. As the night stretched on in the quiet of space, the children slept finally, exhausted from fear and excitement. The widow remained awake, watching them, silently vowing to protect them with all her strength. But the human remained alert, scanning the stars. Somewhere out there the bounty hunter lingered. Somewhere out there other threats waited. Their journey was far from over, and yet, for the first time in what felt like forever, they had each other. The ship sailed silently through the void, carrying a fragile new family bound by loss, hope, and courage. The stars stretched endlessly before them, mysterious, beautiful, and dangerous. Cliffhanger ending of Part 2. A faint, flickering signal appeared on the ship's radar, a coded transmission from an unknown source. Its origin was not listed in any database. The human frowned. "This is not random," he muttered. "Someone knows we are here, and they are coming." The widow's hand gripped his arm. "Then we must be ready," she said, her voice steady but filled with fear. The camera pans out to show the tiny ship drifting through the vast, starry expanse, unaware of the forces closing in, yet moving forward with hope, courage, and determination. The spacecraft drifted silently through the endless sea of stars, its lights dim against the void. The human stood at the control panel, his eyes scanning every sensor, every blip, every flicker of motion around them. The children huddled near the widow, whispering softly to each other, while the widow herself stared at the stars outside the viewport, silent and tense. The faint coded signal from earlier still haunted the human's mind. It was deliberate, not random. Someone or something knew exactly where they were. Whoever it was had power, precision, and intent. The human knew they were not alone. "Stay close," he said quietly to the widow, who nodded, gripping the children tightly. "If they come, I will protect you." "No one touches these children." The ship shuddered suddenly. A warning light flashed red. The human's pulse quickened as he realized the sensors were picking up multiple fast-moving ships converging on their position. The bounty hunter and others far more dangerous were closing in. The children gasped. "Father?" The little girl whispered, fear coloring her voice. "Yes," the human said firmly. "I am here. We are together. Nothing will harm you." The widow's violet eyes met his, and for a moment they exchanged silent understanding. Courage was needed, but survival required more than courage. It required cleverness. The first attack came swiftly. Beams of energy sliced through the darkness, barely missing the spacecraft. The human maneuvered the ship with precision, dodging, rolling, and spinning as the children clung to the widow. Sparks flew across the panels, alarms blared, and the ship shook violently. The human's mind raced. He had weapons on board, yes, but against multiple attackers, brute force alone would not be enough. He needed a plan. His eyes scanned the holographic map of nearby asteroids. A cluster of jagged rocks hovered close by, dense, chaotic, and perfect for cover. "Hold on," he shouted and steered the ship into the asteroid field. The pursuing ships followed, their lasers bouncing harmlessly off the jagged stones. The children screamed with excitement and fear, but the widow remained calm, guiding them with her hands, her presence steadying their trembling bodies. Inside the ship, the human accessed his console, activating automated defense drones. The drones hummed to life, small but lethal, ready to intercept anything that breached the asteroid cover. Suddenly, one of the attackers broke formation and zoomed directly toward them, its energy cannon charged, glowing a fierce red. The human calculated the trajectory, releasing a drone that intercepted the beam midair. It exploded harmlessly in a flash of sparks, and the children clung together, eyes wide. "We're not done yet," the human muttered, scanning for more threats. The widow stepped forward. "I can help," she said quietly. Her hands glowed faintly with a soft energy that the human had not noticed before. She had been trained in her planet's ancient defensive arts, something she had hidden since the attack that killed her husband. With careful precision, she amplified the ship's shields, reinforcing them just enough to withstand the attacker's next wave. The human stared at her, impressed. "I didn't know you could do that." "I kept it hidden," she said softly. "For the children, for survival." The battle intensified. Lasers crisscrossed the void, drones intercepted missiles, and the human's hands moved with lightning speed across the controls. But the attackers were cunning, adapting to every maneuver, anticipating their next move. The human realized the fight could not last forever. He needed a decisive action, a way to end this chase once and for all. "Children," he said, turning to them briefly, Remember what I told you? Stay close. Trust me. The widow nodded, her hand tightening around theirs. The children's eyes were filled with unwavering trust. That trust gave the human clarity. He could not just run. He had to outsmart them completely. He accessed the ship's navigation system and plotted a course through a nearby debris field, a region of broken satellites and abandoned star stations. The attackers would follow, but the narrow paths and sudden obstacles would work in his favor. Now, he whispered, pressing the activation sequence. The ship shot forward at maximum speed, weaving through the debris. The attackers struggled to follow, crashing into old satellites, sending fragments flying in all directions. One by one, their ships were disabled or destroyed by the chaos. Breathing heavily, the human allowed himself a moment of relief. The immediate threat was gone. The children clung to him and the widow, who smiled faintly, her violet eyes reflecting gratitude and awe. You did it, she whispered. You saved us. The human shook his head. We did it, he corrected. Together. As the adrenaline faded, the human looked at the children. You are brave, he said. Do you know that? The little boy smiled faintly. We learned from you, he said. His voice was soft but steady. The little girl added, and from Mother. She looked at the widow, who nodded, pride and warmth in her eyes. The human allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of loneliness lift. These children, this widow, they were no longer strangers. They were family. After some rest, the human accessed the ship's secure communications. He traced the coded signal they had detected earlier. Its source was far, far away on a distant planet rarely visited. Whoever sent it knew of their journey, but the message was not a threat, it was a warning. They know we are here, the human said. And they are coming. The widow's face hardened. Then we must prepare, she said. We have survived this far. We can survive what comes next. The human nodded, impressed by her resilience. Yes, he said. And we will face it together. For the next several hours, they traveled in silence. The children played quietly. The widow kept watch, and the human plotted their next course. Each star they passed reminded them of the vast universe, beautiful, mysterious, and dangerous. Finally, as they approached a distant, uncharted system, the human slowed the ship. This planet, he said, is isolated. Few travel here. It can be our safe place, at least for now. The children's eyes lit up at the sight of green landscapes and blue oceans below. Home? The little girl asked hopefully. Yes, the human said. Our home. A place to rest, to rebuild, to be safe. The widow stepped closer, placing her hand on the human's arm. Thank you, she whispered. You have given us more than safety. You have given us hope. The human felt warmth in his chest. This was more than survival. This was family, trust, and love. For all the dangers of the universe, he realized that courage and compassion were the strongest forces of all. As the ship landed on the distant planet, the children rushed out, their laughter echoing in the valleys. The widow followed, her eyes softening as she watched them play. The human stepped outside, looking up at the sky filled with stars that stretched endlessly. He knew this was only the beginning. Other threats would come. Other challenges awaited. But he was not afraid, not anymore. They had each other, and together they could face anything. As night fell on the new world, a faint glimmer appeared in the sky. A star flickered unusually bright, almost like a signal, a reminder that the universe was alive, watching, and full of mysteries yet to be solved. The human held the widow's hand, and together, they watched their children sleep under the alien moons. He whispered quietly, "We will protect them always." The widow nodded, tears of relief glistening in her eyes. And they will grow knowing love, knowing safety, knowing family. In the vastness of space, among distant stars and endless possibilities, a human had found courage, a widow had found hope, and orphaned children had found a home. They were a family forged in adversity, bound by heart, trust, and the unbreakable ties of shared survival. And though the universe held many dangers yet, for this moment at least, peace settled over them. Cliffhanger hint for future stories. As the camera pans out, far above the new planet, a shadowy figure watches from orbit. A hint that even in safety, the universe still has plans, mysteries, and challenges waiting for this human and his alien family.